let's talk materials. Now I'm using Juniper Moon Farm Cumulus Rainbow, which I purchased at Yarnia in Montclair. In case you're going to ask, this is not a sponsored video. I just liked the yarn. It is 94% cotton and 6% nylon. Now, the good news about this yarn is the color gradient does a lot of the work, because I'm here to tell you this entire pattern is basically a 2-row repeat. I will say though, for the size small though, which is the one I'm making on camera, I never got to some of the colors. Now, I feel like, I haven't done the math yet, but I will. I feel like for the medium, you could still do it in 2 skeins and possibly the large. Again, I haven't done the math yet. But if you went up to anything over the large, you would need additional yarn. Now this yarn has, let's see, I'm looking for the yardage, 251 yards. So I made the small out of well under 500 yards of yarn. Again, I'm just kind of grooving on this yarn. I actually spent my own money on it because it does knit as a worsted, although it looks a little bigger than that, but it does knit up as a worsted. It's so soft. I'm just really liking it. Now I'm using a size 7 or a 4.5 millimeter knitting needle. I do tend to knit a little loose. It's possible you'll need to go to an 8 with this yarn, but I'm working on a 7 and it's working fine. Another thing I will say, because this yarn is cotton, you don't want a super loose fabric, because as soon as you sweat in it or it gets wet when you wash it or whatever, it has no elasticity. It is not going to snap back. So a firmer fabric is better than a looser one. Also, this way you could wear it without having any body parts showing through in an inappropriate manner. So this is the front, well, and the back. And what we're going to do first, I'm only going to do the small on camera. Again, you will be able to get different sizes from the actual PDF pattern. But I am going to first cast on 84 stitches, and I wanted the dark orange at the bottom, so I started on the outer edge of the yarn. If you wanted to start at the other end, you could certainly do that too. Just do a little planning about how you want your colors to lay. Remember, I am knitting a size small. Not that I have any objection to larger sizes. I wear a larger size myself, but my model for this project is a size small, so I'm working on the prototype right now to get more bang for my knitting buck. So we're going to begin by knitting 9. 1, 9. Now this is a right side row because I used a long tail cast on, and the long tail cast on counts as a knit row. The first row that I'm actually knitting is a right side row. So now I'm going to knit 2 together and knit 14. 2, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I count these first bunches of rows over and over because I swear to goodness, when I made the first half, I kept screwing up the count. And also the increases and decreases are kind of hard to see in the garter stitch section. And we begin and end each side with 3 garter stitch ridges. So I did my knit 9, knit 2 together, knit 14. Now, this stitch right here is going to be the center of the point that is facing up. So we're going to make 1 right, knit 1, make 1 left. So to make 1 right, we're going to bring the left-hand needle tip under the horizontal bar between the stitches from back to front, and we're going to knit into the front of the stitch. Then we're going to knit that stitch. And now we're going to make 1 left. And you'll see I use my right hand needle tip to sort of goose things along. I don't feel like I am adept enough, especially with a fuzzy cotton yarn, to just get it on the first shot with my left hand needle. So I use my right hand needle to help. So now I've inserted my left hand needle tip under the horizontal bar between these 2 stitches from front to back, and I'm going to knit it through the back loop. There we go. Now, I have learned from experience, having knit half of this already, you really need to go loose with the make one right, the knit one, and the make one left. If you don't, it pulls so much more tightly than the rest of the work does for some reason. I think, again, it's because it's a cotton yarn. In the same way that we were talking about wanting a firm fabric, we have to remember that cotton doesn't have a whole lot of a natural elasticity. It's not going to snap back. So really give yourself some room on those increase sections. Now I'm going to knit 14, 12, 13, 14. And now we're going to do the section. This is going to be the bottom of the V for the neckline. So we're going to do 2 decreases. One is left leaning and one is right leaning. So we're going to do an SSK first, slip 1 stitch knitwise, slip the 2nd stitch knitwise, put both of them back on the left hand needle and knit them together through the back loop. I'll show you a sneakier way to do that later, but that's how we normally teach it. So there's my left leaning decrease, and now I have a right leaning decrease, which of course is the knit 2 together. Now you've noticed I slid my stitches up a little closer to the point. That is because, again, cotton yarn, not a lot of elasticity. If I need a little bit of room to get my needle tip into 2 stitches at once, and I slide them to the point where it's tapered, I have just the least little bit more room in there. So now we're going to knit 14 more. Does that sound like familiar? 2. And then we're going to do the other point that faces up. 13, 14, and then let's take a look again at the, here's our stitch, make 1 right, make a stitch, make 1 left. So to make 1 right, I'm bringing the left hand needle tip back to front through the bar between the 2 stitches underneath, and I'm going to knit in the front of the stitch like I normally would, and I'm going to give that stitch some space because I'm going to need the room. Now I'm going to knit 1 and give that stitch a little extra space, and now I'm going to make 1 left. I'm going to put the left hand needle tip under that horizontal strand from front to back and knit it through the back loop. And again, this one especially, it's super tight. So use this, take this opportunity to give yourself a little extra room. Knit 14, 1. Now I have 1 more decrease. It is a left leaning decrease, or an SSK. I should have 11 stitches left if I have counted correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's look at that SSK again, but I'm going to show you how I do it. I find it a little quicker. So I'm going to slip the first stitch knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise, begin to put them back on the left hand needle, but I'm not going to take my right hand needle tip out. I'm just going to orient it towards the back of the work, and it's already in place to knit them together through the back loop, as opposed to taking the needle out, putting them back on, and sticking the needle back. So now I'm going to knit 9, and since I am in the edging, my return row is going to be a knit row. My wrong side row is going to be a knit row. This is the only this is the only right side row in this entire pattern. If you are working in the garter stitch ridges at the bottom, here's the bottom, we want 3 ridges. And here is the top, we want 3 ridges. And of course that last little decorative edge here is the bind off. Then on the wrong side row, the return row, I'm knitting. The entire rest of the garment is the same right side row that we've already done, and then on the return or wrong side row, I'm purling. So I'm going to finish my garter stitch border, and I'm going to put a couple more rows in the stockinette side section, and then I'm going to come back and just show you what it looks like, because it does look a little bit different. But the good news is when you get to this section, it's really easy to see where your increases and decreases go. I know you're all very clever and you can count, but I want to show you a couple of things. You still have to count every right side row, and it's the same count for every right side row, but as you have your pattern developing on the stockinette stitch section, you can really see where your decreases are going to be because they line up, where your increases are going to be because you have that strong vertical line from the central stitch, where your decreases meet up, increase, decrease. You can see the stitches just completely change orientation at that decrease line. So I'm going to do the right side row one more time, but I'm going to do it in a stockinette section in case that helps some of you visually. I'm going to start with a knit 9. But you see what I mean? These guys are all going straight up and down. And when you get to here, you can see that the stitches are starting to lean to the right. So I'm going to do my knit 2 together, and then knit 14, 13, 14, and again, if I lose count, you can see my strong column of knit stitches is right here. So I'm going to make one right by taking the left hand needle tip and putting it through the work, that horizontal strand between the bottom 2 stitches from back to front, and knit in the front of the stitch loosely because I need the room. Then I'm going to knit that central stitch, and then I'm going to make one left, and I'm using my right hand needle tip to speed things along, inserting my left hand needle tip under that horizontal strand from front to back and knitting the stitch through the back loop nice and loose. That's going to give me my make one left, knit 14, 13, 14, and now my double decrease. That's an SSK, slip one knitwise, slip the next knitwise, put them back on your left hand needle, and knit 2 together through the back loop, knit 2 together, knit 14. 14. There's my nice solid column. Now I have my double increase. Insert that left hand needle tip through the back to the front and knit it. That's my right leaning decrease. Knit that center stitch. Insert the left hand needle tip from front to back and knit in the back of that stitch. There's my left leaning decrease. Knit 14, 14, my left leaning decrease or SSK, slip, slip, knit, and there should be 9 left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and purl on the wrong side rows. So you're going to work in this stockinette version of the pattern until your work is the desired length, or 10 inches in my case, and you want to measure up the side edge. I know we always tell you when you're doing gauge swatches not to measure along the side, but it is kind of the easiest place to get a straight answer as to how tall your work is. Alternatively, you could measure from a peak to a peak. So this way. But you don't want to try and measure in here where your work is going off to one side and the other. You want to measure along the side, which is a straight edge, or peak to peak, till 10 inches or your desired length, and then you're going to switch back to your garter stitch border. The right side row remains the same. You will knit the wrong side row instead of purling the wrong side row, and then do a knitwise bind off. All right, so I made my front and I made my back, and I started from the same point in the gradient. Now I say this in the notes on the blog and also on the PDF pattern. Because of the way this gradient played out, I have suggested quite a lot of yarn for the larger sizes if you're using this exact yarn, the Juniper Moon Farm Cumulus Rainbow. for some of the sizes, and again, check the PDF pattern, you could probably get away with less yarn if you weren't trying to match a gradient. So here's my side seam. I just did a regular old mattress stitch, which you can see right there. And I used a long tail that I had left from the cast on when I was sewing. And you can see it's not an exact match in the gradient, but it's pretty darn close. And I don't think anybody's going to be staring at your underarms. I could be wrong. And then the last thing I did was I made 2 I-cord straps with a 3-stitch I-cord. I made mine 11 inches because, again, I measured them exactly on the model. And to clarify, I made an extra small, not a small, because I misspoke at the beginning. But then I just stitched those I-cord straps down. And I tried to keep it all in the garter section of the ridge, just because that's a little sturdier and it's a little easier to stitch without having any of your stitching come through. And that is all there is to the Tropical Sunset tank top. So once again, zip on over to the blog. You can purchase a PDF copy of the pattern with sizes up to 3X, which is a 56-inch finished bust, for $7. But I appreciate you hanging out with me. I appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you again here real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.